Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the December 8th, 2016 Edina Human Rights and Relations Commission's meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chair Arsenault.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Here.
Commissioner Vecchio-Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Meek.
Here.
Commissioner Martin. Commissioner Edwards.
Here.
Commissioner Edelson. Commissioner Behringer.
Here.
Commissioner Chow.
Here.
Commissioner Sinha.
Here.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Tonight's meeting agenda has been adopted. Next, we have approval of our minutes from the November 15th, 2016 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Our November 15th meeting minutes have been approved. Next up on our agenda is a special presentation. We have a guest speaker with us this evening, Kevin Lindsey. Mr. Lindsey is our Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, and he has been in this position since 2011 when he was appointed by Governor Mark Dayton. Commissioner Lindsey is here to speak with us about his work on the commission and to talk to us about what he has been doing with the commission, what kind of his plans are, and how maybe we can connect as a local commission. Commissioner?
So, Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to address you and then the members of the Edina Human Rights Commission. My name is Kevin Lindsey. I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. As you indicated in your welcome to me, I have been serving as a commissioner since 2011. I want to give you a little background on sort of what has happened since that time, and I'll start as relates to the first week on the job. Prior to becoming commissioner, I was an attorney in the office of the Ramsey County Attorney's Office, and I had the pleasure of arguing a case before the Minnesota Supreme Court. And the first day of arguing before the Minnesota Supreme Court is actually held in the state office building or the state capitol. So it was a wonderful day. Chief Judge Hanson had the argument after me. He congratulated me, really great argument. He said, the next 2 days, I found out that the House wanted to cut the budget of the Department of Human Rights by 80%. The Senate also wanted to cut the budget by 80%. They agreed right before the government shut down that that wasn't far enough. They also wanted to eliminate education, outreach, and conciliation. I give you that background to say there have been times in the past in which we have been on a little bit of a roller coaster ride as it relates to the Department of Human Rights, even under the Dayton administration. When we came back from the government shutdown and what was negotiated was the department faced a cut of about 7%. So it was drastically reduced. But just to give you an appreciation, when we started with a cut to our department's budget. Currently, we have less than 40 employees. In the 1996 Office of Legislative Audit report, the department reported that it had 56 employees. And at that point in time, they indicated that they would not be able to do auditing of state contractors or contractors that were performing work for major metropolitan agencies. I give you that because of the three primary duties within the department. One is to ensure that equal employment opportunities are provided by state contracts. In 2012, I adjusted the workforce participation goals in Hennepin and Ramsey County for construction. This impacted the construction as it relates to the U.S. Bank Stadium project. So for people of color, they had an opportunity to try and achieve 32 workforce hours. That project achieved 36%. The other 75 projects in Hennepin County, if I exclude the U.S. Bank Stadium project, those projects also would be over 30%. And then in Ramsey County, the projects would have been achieved in that same period of time, 27.5%. Workforce participation goals And the work in which we have done there is tried to bring people together to create economic opportunities for historically disenfranchised communities. It's not been easy, but it has been significant, the work and the progress which we have made. Again, going back to the OLA report, when they had 56 employees, they indicated they did not have the ability to do contracting oversight. This year we'll do about 400 audits of state contractors. So it's a significant achievement of the folks that are doing the auditing work. Let me talk a little bit about enforcement. Over the history in the last 50 years, local human rights commissions such as here today no longer investigate complaints of discrimination. All of that really has been consolidated at the state level or at the Minneapolis Human Rights Department or the St. Paul Human Rights Department. The department has taken on a greater role in investigating complaints of discrimination. When I first started as the commissioner in 2011, we were investigating about 225 complaints of discrimination a year. In the 4 years prior to becoming commissioner, the department issued 1,080 determinations. The first 4 years after becoming commissioner, the department issued 2,400 determinations. So more than double the number of determinations which we issued. The average length of time in the year prior to becoming commissioner was 432 days in which to issue a determination. Currently, it stands at 245 days. Now, 245 days is still a long period of time, but from where we were, where it was 432, and the fact that we more than doubled the number of investigations issued, significant work for the folks that are doing the work in the enforcement unit. There's a third primary duty under the Human Rights Act, and that's doing education, conference, and conciliation and outreach. We really feel that we have been in this business, been in this space the entire time in which I have been commissioner. As you may recall, we had 2 constitutional amendments, one on same-sex, one on photo ID. The department coordinated, partnered with educational institutions, human rights commissions throughout the state, and held panels, forums to educate the public as it relates to potential consequences, either voting yes or no, as it relates to the 2 constitutional amendments. The department participated in about 25 roundtable type discussions throughout the state. It is a point for us as it relates to the department of being able to explain the consequences as it relates to the 2 constitutional amendments, what that impact was. I think it was very hopeful for the entire state to sort of appreciate in a calm, deliberate manner, having information so they can make an informed decision and judgment as it relates to how to cast their particular ballot or vote. From that particular space, I think people appreciated the department being able to weigh in on other executive orders passed by the governor, such as school bullying, tribal consultation policy, Olmstead, and also passing legislation trying to address the issues of giving individuals who have committed a crime a second chance, and that's through Ban the Box or amending the Criminal Rehabilitation Offenders Act. So when we look at the respective work of the department, we have made significant strides, I would say, in investigating complaints of discrimination. I think that we have made significant strides as it relates to the auditing of state contractors. And in the area of education conference, I think that we have made strides in that respective area. We've also added, as I said, those additional statutory duties from Ban the Box. What is the role, what can be the role as it relates to human rights commissions such as yourself and the department? The department currently right now is serving on an interagency task force on ending homelessness. It's also sitting on an interagency task force on reducing recidivism. These opportunities to share, facilitate information to local communities about how they can impact issues which affect individuals within their communities, I think is woefully underutilized, and that there can be an opportunity for the Department of Human Rights to facilitate coordination of resources and information to local human rights commissions, to cities, and to counties as it relates to the work which is being done at the state level. Now, I do appreciate that not all human rights commissions are the same. There are some that receive no funding at all. There are some that receive a little bit of funding. And there are some, I would dare say, probably do not have the fine surroundings that I am in now to hold their respective meetings. That being said, is there and can there be opportunities for human rights commissions to leverage what is going on within their respective space and hope to collectively build more information, more opportunities among the folks that are committed to raising the bar on the issue of human rights within our state? And I think the time period that we're in now, it really calls upon individuals who are committed to standing up and not being silent on human rights issues, to make their voices heard, to share information about best practices in human rights, and to truly make Minnesota the North Star state that it truly wishes to be, a model as it relates to the best that there can be within the United States. I'm hoping that this will be the first of maybe many conversations between ourselves as it relates to how we can ensure that more Minnesotans know about their rights under the law and know about the best practices for protecting those human rights. So with that, I thank you for the time you've allotted me. I've tried to stay within the 15 minutes. And if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to take any questions from commission members.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll just turn it over to anyone who has questions.
Commissioner Lindsey, thank you so much. Your office held a day-long symposium today, and Governor Dayton spoke very eloquently and began by saying that this is a hard time for human rights. If you could ask each city commission rather, to do something to move forward right now, what would you like to see city commissions do?
I appreciate the question. I would actually turn it back to the commission itself. My experience has been is that when people are passionate about a particular issue, they tend to stay with that issue and they tend to excel within that issue. So for me, I don't want to presuppose that I know that the issue that you're struggling with, you're most passionate as a Human Rights Commission, is homelessness or school bullying. I really look and would ask you to give us guidance about how we can work together on that particular issue. You can't be wrong as it relates to, for us, our jurisdiction is broad as it relates to public accommodation services, employment, housing, education, criminal justice reform. There's probably some connection on what we're doing now.
Thank you. I think one of the issues that we have been focusing on really over the years is affordable housing, one of the things that you mentioned. That has been a particular concern of ours for our community. I think to some extent policing has surfaced for us, and kind of the race and equity issues in general we are looking at, beginning to look at.
So to that, I think as a individual who also sits on the St. Paul Public Housing Authority, we have been tracking as it relates to who would lead the efforts of housing and urban development. So the recent announcement of the candidacy of Dr. Carson going forward, it will be interesting to see whether the efforts of HUD about furthering affirmative fair housing and the initiative there will continue to go forward. So I think that that is a good issue to work on, and we've been in conversation with cities and the Metropolitan Council on that respective issue. The policing issue is one. I do serve on the Governor's Policing Commission. We had a meeting on Monday of this week. I think there has been some good conversation between individuals on the task force, and we're going to be opening up and soliciting more input from city members, community members, and the public. And I think that that, again, would be a great issue or opportunity to kind of lean in and provide input. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to have some recommendations that will get a fair hearing before the legislature in January.
Other questions?
Just a quick follow-up question. Is there somewhere where we could, as a group, track the work of the Governor's Policing Commission? Are minutes available online or anything like that?
I think they are online. Unfortunately, the commissioner does not commit to memory information such as that. But what I would say is if offline, if you would like to make a connection to our office, I know David Collier within the governor's office is kind of transcribing the notes. We can figure out how to get that information to you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else have a question for the commissioner? Okay, we'd like to thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate your remarks. I think we probably will do some connecting with you offline or with your office.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity, and commission members, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is our reports and recommendations. And first up is just kind of the finish. Oh, I'm sorry. Next on the agenda is community comments. Thank you. And we do have some members of the community. So I will just turn it over to Leslie. If you could please just state your name and address.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner, my name is Leslie Lagerstrom, and I live at 4548 Oxford Avenue. And I am here tonight on behalf of the Edina Citizens Human Rights Committee. I'd like to give you an update. I believe my co-chair, Colleen Feige, was here a meeting or two ago. So just as a reminder, we've formed this citizens group as kind of a grassroots type of movement to help support Edina's designation as a human rights city. So I'd like to give you just some quick updates on what we're doing. We held our first meeting on November 29th. We did some very bare bones marketing, and from that we had 30 people show up, which was a very spirited group. We opened it for the first half and gave them a presentation on what exactly human rights cities are. And then the last 30 minutes we allowed discussion, and this discussion was very spirited and provided a lot of food for thought that we are going to take forward within our group. As far as next steps go, we have 12 people who stepped forward to be a part of a steering committee for us. So we're going to be meeting with them in January. And at that meeting, we're hoping to lay out some goals and priorities for this grassroots effort. We've also established an email address, edinarights@gmail.com. And we also have a Facebook page. And we did those, we established those things with the hope of encouraging some open communications within our city. And then finally, we plan to host these larger group meetings on a quarterly basis. And so just like the one in November, we'll be having one on February 1st. It's going to be at the Senior Center at 7 o'clock, and everyone is welcome. We'd love to see all of you there as well. And it's open to the public. So that is my update on what our citizens group is doing. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
And now we'll move to our reports and recommendations. The 2016 work plan wrap-up is first on the list. And we just wanted to report, Commissioner Vecchio Smith and I attended the City Council meeting on Tuesday, where our report and recommendation on community conversations was on the agenda. It was received by the council really with very little comment. Basically, the comment was just that it appeared that a lot of the recommendations in our report related to things that they were covering on their agenda and things that they were placing on our work plan or that were already on our work plan. And so they could see some ties into that, and they kind of held the discussion until they talked about some things later in the agenda, or more or less said that would be covered really in our work plan. So that was, we really didn't get, I don't know if you have, and there really wasn't much other conversation about that, but they did receive it. So they have both our report, our commission's report, and then attached to the report was the initial working group's report to our commission. So they have all of the information in front of them now at this point. So that was just that update. And then I also wanted to give an update on the affordable housing because that it was on our work plan. And in our packet this evening, we included the revisions to the affordable housing policy that the council adopted at last Tuesday's meeting. It's a fairly small revision, but they described it as one that they were doing to close a loophole. I don't know that all of the commissioners actually, or all of the council members actually agreed that it was necessarily a loophole, but that was the staff's recommendation was to change the policy, and the council did make that change. So that at least in future, when there are multiple housing units that are before the council, that they will fall under the plan. It appeared that there was one. I think it was the Opus, the project around Opus. Am I right? Yes, that was determined to be not have fallen under the plan, and they wanted to just make sure that didn't happen going forward. So that was that change. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but just wanted to bring that to your attention, that's been updated.
What was the vote? Was it unanimous, or was there any disagreement?
There was no disagreement. The vote was unanimous. There was just a comment by at least one council member who said, I'm not sure that I even agree that that Opus project should have been excluded. It's not that there was any disagreement that they wanted all of these projects to be included. So I think the staff, and even there was some discussion with the council's attorney, the city attorney, about whether it was necessary or not, and the conclusion was that it was necessary. And the majority of minds felt that the change was necessary, so the council adopted it.
Thank you.
Next, we have our 2017 work plan update. And we do have in our packet our 2017 work plan. This was approved by council at their meeting on Tuesday. So it is a bit different than the one we submitted. There is a memo that goes with the work plan that explains, I think, some of the changes to the work plan, and it ties into some of the other activity that is kind of going on with the city council, and ties in with some other agenda items that they adopted at their December meeting. So one of the things that the council did was they approved that the city's membership in the Race and Equity Initiative, so that was approved at the city council meeting. We have that information in our packet. And then you'll see in our work plan that we are listed, this is Initiative 4, we are listed as lead commission for that particular initiative. I think that there's a whole description of the initiative and how that will work, although I think there are some parts that need to be kind of worked out, and not sure that it's all fleshed out. The council discussion was I mean, they were happy with it, and they thought it was a good start, and they just realized that it probably would need some tweaking because this was a very new effort for them. But it's a one-year commitment right now. When you oh no, I'm mixing that up. I'm sorry. The one-year commitment is, yeah, that's
Timelines through March.
yes. Oh, okay. So it's beyond a year for this. So we're tied into that on our work plan. Some of the other changes. Where we had the Human Rights City designation as one initiative, and we had several aspects of that listed as a strategic plan. One was affordable housing. We had some other items. They sort of, the best way I can describe it is they kind of broke that up and tied it into these things that they're doing. So they tied that into this Race and Equity Initiative, work on that. They tied it into their work on the comprehensive plan. And I think the piece that gets tied to the work on the comprehensive plan is the affordable housing piece, because there is an entire chapter in the comprehensive plan on housing. And then a couple of other items that they changed had to do with staffing. I know one of the things that was dropped was the age-friendly city initiative. And I think there was a concern that it was a huge undertaking, and they wanted us to work on these other things that they are recognizing are huge. I don't know if you looked at some of the, I mean, if you look at kind of the Race and Equity Initiative and the GARE, they are kind of huge undertakings. And I think they look like they could potentially be labor-intensive undertakings for us. So I think there was a concern that we just didn't have enough kind of labor capital to us and staff to do that particular project. So that's kind of a summary of the changes, I think, based on what our work plan looks like now and the memo. I think. Oh, Ellen?
I have a question. How do you foresee this commission connecting to the overall work of the city in these areas? I'm not clear.
I think that's a good question.
Okay.
I think part of it will be our liaisons will work. Our liaison will work with liaisons on these other, to the extent that it relates to other commissions. So I think that's one way. In terms of the comprehensive plan, specifically, the Planning Commission is sort of, they're the lead on the work on the comprehensive plan. So we will be working through a liaison from the Planning Commission, and we have been assigned, our commission, as well as all of the other boards and commissions, have been assigned a liaison from the Planning Commission. We have been assigned one. I have spoken to him. It's Ian. Help me with his last name. Nemerol. Thank you.
Okay.
And we just briefly talked. I said, this was before we even had our work plan approved. I said, it's probably a little premature for you to attend one of our meetings since we will probably be asking why you're here. But now that our work plan is approved, he will be working with us. I think he can work with whatever committee whoever wants to be on this committee, he can work directly with them. He can come to our full council meeting. So that's one way he will be that liaison, because our work will work through the Planning Commission. In terms of the Race and Equity Initiative, I think that's probably through the staff liaisons will help us coordinate that. And I think part of it is a wait and see. I'm not sure that that's fully fleshed out yet.
Right, you're correct. It's not totally fleshed out yet, but if you notice on the graph, there are 3 positions or seats that are slated for HRC members for the GARE cohort. And Manager Neal will actually be reaching out to the HRC to gauge interest and then decide and make selections based upon that.
When do you think he'll do that, MJ?
I'm not entirely sure, but they're supposed to make the appointments in January, so I would guess it probably will be the beginning of the year.
I'm just trying to get a sense of how this will fit into what we're doing, both as individuals and as a commission. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think with that, we probably could move into setting up committees for the work plan, and as we go through, if they need more discussion, we can talk about each one as we go forward. I'll just go through each item on the work plan and ask for volunteers for a committee. That's the way we typically get our work done, is a kind of an offline committee. With the exception of the, I think, Race and Equity Initiative, I think we'll hold off, given that we're not sure what is going to be called, what we're going to need to do, and whoever's interested, when City Manager Neal reaches out and he selects those people, those probably will be the natural people to form that committee. So I think we'll hold off on that one, but the rest we'll try to populate this evening. Michelle, did you have a question?
I did. I was just going to ask, with the task force, what was the deadline? And I know it's somewhere in here of when they're going to choose, because isn't that prior to our next meeting? Sorry, it's in here.
So it's actually January 13th.
Gotcha.
That they are going to be having a session, and council will make their selections. Then it will be that I don't think there's a council meeting until the next week, and that's when they'll officially make the appointments.
Okay.
So yes, it does happen, and I can tell you that the application is live right now. I actually did release it. They'll put out the press release and more communication later this week or early next week.
Okay.
But it is available. It's on the Volunteer Edina website, along with a description and the application.
Awesome. Thanks.
So first on our work plan is the Tom Oy Award. Are there people who are interested in serving on that committee? I think one of the things that we determined that we would be doing this year is kind of looking at developing an annual theme for this award. So this would go into effect really for the 2018 award, because right now, of course, we have the nominations live. We're accepting nominations for the 2017 award, which will be issued in March or April. March or April? April, thank you. So, and we will be, I think we will be looking at those at our February meeting. We'll receive them by our January meeting, and then we'll be making the decision by February. So that call has already gone out. But the committee would be looking at adopting a theme for what would be the 2018 award. And whatever else the committee might want to look at in terms of our qualifications or our criteria if the committee deems that we need to relook at those. Are there people who are interested in the Tom Oy Award Committee?
I would like to be on that committee.
Thank you. Anyone else? We can have up to 4 council members on a committee, and
Throw me in.
okay, Cindy. And that would, and we can have student commissioners on there. That doesn't go into the count of 4, so feel free to volunteer for any of these that you would like to.
I'd like to be on it, please.
Great, thank you, Prasoon. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone.
Was Commissioner Martin going to stay on?
I can ask her. There certainly would be room because we have 2 commissioners. Thank you for that. I will ask her. I don't know, but I will ask if she would like to continue on for next year. Next is the Bias Offense Response Plan Committee. And that responsibility is reviewing the plan to make a determination if we want to make any recommendations for changes. That typically happens in the summer, and we usually queue up the recommendations for changes at about our August meeting. So that kind of happens over the summer for August. And that's typically the cycle that we've been following for a number of years.
I'd like to work on that.
Okay.
I will too.
I will too.
Okay. Jim and Michelle?
This year, we also have to do the tracking system as well.
Okay. I would like to stay on that as well, so I'm going to add my name. Okay, next up we have the Days of Remembrance event. Are there members who would like to be on that committee?
I would. Thank
Okay.
you.
Michelle, others?
I would like to be on it too.
Okay. Connie, thank you. Are there others who are interested?
I'd like to be on it as well.
Okay, Prasoon, thank you.
I would also like to be on it.
Catherine? I'd like to stay on that as well. I'm just trying to see. We have Catherine, Michelle, just trying to make sure we don't have over 4. 2 students, it looks like we're good. I will check with Heather, who had expressed interest in this particular group, so I will check with her. As I said, I'd like to hold off on populating the whatever it is on the Race and Equity Initiative, because I'm not sure what it is that we will be asked to do, and I think we have whoever the 3 representatives are, I think would be involved in that kind of naturally. So I would like to skip that for the moment. I think we can populate the Sharing Values, Sharing Communities Committee. Are there?
I'll be part of that.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Maggie? Okay, I've got you.
I would love to, if possible. Yeah.
Michelle?
If no one else wants to, yeah.
Is anyone else interested in the Sharing Values, Sharing Communities Committee?
I would like to be on it too.
Great. Connie?
I would be happy to do it, but if Heather would rather do it and she's the 4th, I would back off
Okay.
too, either way.
Thank you, Jim. Right now I have 3 commissioners, and then if we leave a slot for Heather, that's 4.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put your name down.
That's fine. That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Yeah.
And then I'll just put Heather down kind of as a placeholder, and we will ask her. Thank you. The Human Rights Essays Contest, I think we had Ellen and Heather already suggest that they're interested, so I'm, Ellen?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to put Heather's name down as a placeholder because both of them have already worked on this, but we do have room for others. If others would like to join, are there student commissioners who would like to join?
Yes, I'd like to be on this one.
Thank you.
And me too.
Okay, great. Connie and Pursoon. So there's still some slots if anyone else wants to be on this committee.
Throw me on.
Cindy, I'm putting Cindy on this. Okay.
And can someone remind me, that was starting with like upper middle school and high school, right? It didn't include little ones?
Oh, no.
Right?
No, it doesn't
Okay.
include middle school either. It's
Okay.
high school students and adults.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I think last on our 2017 plan is the what is called Assist as Requested with development of the city's new comprehensive guide plan. And as I say, I believe that is our work where we will work in conjunction with the Planning Commission and the rep to the Planning Commission. And in particular, I think there is that chapter on housing. I think there are some other chapters, if you look at the comprehensive plan, that
There's
really
a lot of stuff on aging,
Thank
aging
you.
in place. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
really fairly
Other
comprehensive.
things that probably would be within our purview. So are there people that would like to serve on that committee?
I'm very interested in doing that.
So am I.
I would as well, given the connection to the Human Rights City.
Okay, so I have Jim, Cindy, and Ellen, if I heard correctly.
Could I be on that one as well?
Yes, thank you, Pursoon. I will put you on that one.
I think that's another one that we might want to check with Heather on, because I think she might be interested in that. So.
I think that's fair. Thank you, Jim. I will check with her. If everyone's okay with that, we'll kind of leave that slot open. We can always fill it. If Heather does not want to be on any of these that we've sort of held as a spot for her in her absence, we can always fill it with someone else. So we would have that option. There's some of these committees that I think we probably need to get going on right away. So I just wanted to get those populated as soon as possible. So I will leave that placeholder. Thank you, Jim. I will leave that placeholder for Heather on this one. And that is the last of the 2017 Work Plan Initiative. I think that it makes sense that we get started right away on the human rights essay contest. I know that Ellen and Heather have already started some work, but it sounds like we need to get going on that right away. I think Days of Remembrance, we should probably get going on that and have a committee meeting right away. And the others maybe not so critical to get going on immediately, but I think at least those two we probably want to get off the ground. Perhaps the comprehensive plan, we might want to touch base with the Planning Commission rep to see how quickly they want to move. And I'll check back with him and see what his thinking is on that for timing. Is there anything else on the 2017 work plan? Do people have comments or questions before we move to the next item?
I just have a quick clarifying question, probably for MJ. So for the racial equity initiative, so will there be an email sent to everybody, or?
Correct. He'll send it to all of the HRC so everyone can weigh in on how much they're interested. And also it is a large commitment, so he will explain that to you before everyone raises their hand.
Perfect, yeah, because there's enough detail to just raise a lot of questions.
Yep,
so,
and I would
awesome.
say you guys should focus on the GARE information that was provided in the packet when you're thinking about helping with the Race and Equity Initiative, because that's where the 3 specific spots are slotted for HRC.
Thank you, MJ. So if there's nothing else on the 2017 work plan, we will move to correspondence and petitions. We did have some correspondence in our packet for this meeting. One of the items that we received, I just wanted to talk about one of the pieces of correspondence that we received from Frank White. I made an attempt to contact him. He is asking for our kind of a pledge to work with the, or it's a request, I guess, to work with the city, with the school system in this event that he has planned with them for February. I think it's February 11th. I don't have it in front of
I
me.
think it's Edina Community Ed. I think it's one of their, it's in their catalog, I think. I want to double check that real quick.
Thank you. We will get that information. I've tried to connect with him, and I wasn't able to get him on the phone, so I'm going to continue that and see what he has in mind and what we could possibly do maybe to partner. But it sounded very interesting, his information, and if there's a way that we can help communicate his event, I'd like to do that. So I'm going to look into that more, and I will report back in January, at our January meeting. Are there any other comments about our correspondence? Okay, then we have, of course, next on our agenda, chair and member comments. And I am just going to go around the room as I usually do and ask if anyone has any comments. I don't sort of have a preference. I'm going to start to my right. Jim, my far right.
I don't have any comments.
Catherine?
I don't have any comments.
Neither do I.
Still recovering from the election.
Nothing tonight.
I'm sharing information about an event at which Commissioner Lindsey is speaking. It's on Monday, December 12th, from noon to 1 o'clock at the Minnesota State Bar Association offices. The address is on the flyer, and I'll leave a copy of it with MJ and Kelly. They perhaps can post it. The commissioner will be talking on the subject of ISIS, immigrants, and Minnesota, and he will specifically focus on discrimination against Somalis and how to address this challenge in our state. The event is free and it's open to the public. No reservations are needed. I hope you'll all be there.
Thank you, and how timely.
Indeed.
Thanks. Prasoon?
I don't have anything.
Connie?
So I think Prasoon sent an email up to MJ and Heather, was it?
Yeah.
About, we had another meeting at our school. I guess since our last meeting back in November, we've had 2 meetings at school in regards to the incident that happened. And I guess Prasoon can also speak to this because he went to the assembly. So the first meeting that we had in our school occurred, I think, 2 weeks after the incident, and it was classroom-based. So the principal sent out a PowerPoint, and he kind of made a video kind of to distinguish the difference between sympathy and empathy and kind of open it up to a classroom-based discussion. In my opinion, I feel like that wasn't as effective because it left a lot of wiggle room for each teacher to interpret it, and Prasoon can speak about his experience in the classroom if you want.
So my experience was a lot different than most classes because I had a substitute teacher that day. And so we had a substitute teacher giving us a lecture about sympathy versus empathy, and she wasn't very aware of what had happened in our school recently. And thus it wasn't very effective whatsoever. And the kids in my class, they took it more as a joke rather than a learning experience. So that, where it could have been good, because I like the fact that it was a chat more where the students were able to speak, but it wasn't very effective in terms of actually talking about the problems at school. It was more about talking about what is the meaning of sympathy versus empathy, and we watched, I think, a 25-minute video in my class about it. And so I don't really felt it was too effective, but I guess it was a decent start. And then this past Tuesday, we had an assembly. That was, in my opinion, a lot better than the chat. We had a panel of students in the front of the assembly speaking to all of the students about the problems in our school. And it was good to see students talk to us rather than a teacher or an adult figure. To report on the diversity of the student panel, there were 6 to 8 white students and 2 students of color who spoke. And though like all the stories and the speeches were good, I thought there would have been more diversity on the panel, because this is like a major problem with diversity and like racial tensions. The two students of color that did speak, they did an excellent job. They brought out stories about themselves and like things that they've heard, and it created a uncomfortable situation in the assembly room. But that's exactly, I think, what we need as a first step in order to combat this issue. And then Connie can talk about a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so the purpose of the meeting was not only for us to it wasn't really a discussion, rather it was to bring awareness to like privilege and biases that each and every one of us have, whether we recognize that or not. And the assembly concluded with a new Edina High School creed. I don't remember the exact text, but you can definitely find it online on the high school's website. And each teacher has a little poster of it too in their classroom, in addition to a large banner hanging up by, I think, door 3, which is the main entrance to our high school. And the purpose or the message is to say that all students at Edina High School will serve to respect all religions, races, genders, sexual orientations, abilities, to create a sense of social justice for our school. So I think that's definitely been more effective than the in-classroom discussion, but I think our school also has a long ways to go in terms of not just addressing like the effects of all our biases, but where do these biases come from, whether it's housing or like the way that we choose to enroll students, whether in Edina or from other districts. So it's definitely progress, but definitely more to do too.
Thank you. Thank you both for reporting on that follow-up. That was, Michelle?
I was going to ask, did we leave the last meeting saying we were going to write a letter?
We did, and then there was kind of some follow-up with Heather and Prasoon. I think Connie, I think Jim, you were involved, some initial email about the fact that that was before we knew that there was this action being taken with the classroom discussion and the assembly. And I think the Prasoon had asked maybe we should wait to see how the assembly goes before we write a letter. And so now I think that has kind of changed the landscape a little bit in that our initial concern was that there really seemed to be nothing. I think you said originally there was just kind of an announcement on the speaker system or something. So I think our concern was that there was kind of almost no reaction, and we were sort of asking for a response, and now the school system has given a response. So we had agreed to hold off on the letter. Heather had agreed. So I'm not sure where we are now. If you're thinking that it still makes some sense to do some follow-up.
I am not entirely sure, because the assembly, it was a good first step, but at the end, it turned into a joke, where kids were starting to laugh or like holler out when the students were giving at the end of the student speeches, and so the focus shifted from the topic at hand to more about who is speaking in front of us and like applauding them. So I really don't know, and in the email that I sent out recently, I think yesterday, I told, I think, Pat, Heather, and MJ that it's really up to the committee about whether we want to send an email or not.
Well, I was just going to say that I'm sure the school does have a long way to go, and so does society as a whole.
Yeah.
And a good first start is maybe all we can expect at this point, and I'm not sure what we would accomplish by a letter. That's my initial reaction, having heard your comments.
A quick question. Do we know, so I know a lot of the teachers in Edina are working with a leading equity educator called Dr. Shiraki Holly. We talked about him a little bit last year. Do you know if that name is something that you've heard teachers use or students use?
I haven't heard it.
Culturally responsive teaching and communication. I know he's doing a lot of work with the elementary and middle schools. My understanding is he's also at the high school, but maybe not. I was just thinking that, so there are my understanding is that at most of the schools there is a cohort of teachers that are working on culturally responsive teaching practices, culturally and linguistic, CLR, culturally and linguistic responsive teaching, that asking them, so if you two are feeling like step one, the students are a little unsure of what our next step would be, we could talk to the teachers who are more deeply involved in equity work at the site and find out if they would like us to do anything. I don't know how the group feels about that.
Well, I like that idea. I guess what I think that's a great idea, because I guess what I would wonder from you, Connie and Pursuit, is do you feel like there's a good plan to move forward? Because it sounds like the assembly happened and the new creed was created, but is it what's going on an ongoing basis? Because clearly, Jim, to your point, society has a long way to go, right? And we have a long way to go in our community. And I guess the schools are where we start. And after hearing so much about what's going on at the high school over the past few months, I think I'd want to know that there's an ongoing plan exactly in place. So it sounds like that would be a great idea. I don't know how we get in touch with those folks.
I could figure out who that would be.
Yeah, so the name that you mentioned in terms of who trains teachers in terms of cultural sensitivity doesn't really ring a bell to either of us. I mean, it's great that some of the teachers at Edina High School are getting that training, but I think that would be a good next step, because I feel like now administration is kind of just stalled at raising awareness, which, is great. Definitely beginning to talk about issues is the start of anything. But in terms of what they have planned for future initiatives, it hasn't been illustrated directly to the student body. So I think it would be a good move for us to just maybe communicate with those teachers just to see if they're working on anything or if we can help them out in any way.
And is there a student group that is focused on race and equity issues?
I mean, we have, so the groups that created the Edina High School Creed were Student Council, and then 212, which is our leadership team, the Black Student Union, and then there's one more group. I know there were 4 groups. I don't remember the last group. I think it was like Chicanos, maybe, yeah. Like our students who are of Latin American descent were part of creating the Creed. So we could definitely reach out to them. I also know that there is a group called Youth for Social Justice, which pairs closely with our YSY Youth Serving Youth Department. So there's definitely like groups that are aimed towards like reaching that goal, but I don't think there's one distinctive group that encompasses everything.
I have a question for Connie or for Pursuit. You said that near the end of the program of the assembly that some of the students were very disrespectful, derisive of what was happening. Was there any effort by the faculty or administration to address that at the moment or at all? In other words, that seems to be part of the problem that was initiated in the first place.
I went to the first assembly, so because our population is so big at the high school, they had 2 assemblies. I was in the first one. After, like, there was a bunch of hooting and hollering, if you will, at the assembly, there wasn't really any motion by any staff members in the audience or by the principal who was on stage to try to quiet the audience. And, I mean, the speakers were very brave to, go up in front of an entire school body and to, like, talk about the things that they did. But, no, nobody really called out any students or told them to be more respectful. I don't know if, Prasoon, you felt anything different from your...
I was also in the first one, actually. So, yeah, I didn't see any staff really doing anything about it. At the same time, I don't think that they were concerned about the hollering going on. And we could be, like, reading too much into it. But the way that I saw it was I was in the middle of, like, the entire student section, and all of a sudden, instead of, like, focusing on the topic, like, there was kids around me speaking about, like, who was speaking rather than, like, what they were speaking about. And that kind of bothered me in terms of, like, us trying to move forward, we were focused more on like who was speaking. And so I don't think there was anything done by the staff, but I don't think they saw it as a problem either.
How did you perceive it?
I thought it was a problem. So I told the students near me to like listen in because they were kind of bothering me as well. And we were able to understand what the students were speaking about, but I don't think it was okay to clap and laugh at the people who were speaking, and so I didn't think it was a great thing.
You know, that I find that extremely troublesome, that the faculty and staff did nothing. And it seems like there should be a response of some sort. I don't know at this point what that should be, but I really feel that silence in the face of that essentially is condoning what occurred, and that's enormously disrespectful to those students who had, as you say, the courage to be on that stage. It's disrespectful to those of you who were very attentive and very respectful of them for their remarks. I don't feel like it's okay for us to let this go by. I truly don't.
Is any of it recorded?
Not that I know of. No.
I want to agree with Ellen, and I think we definitely need, Maggie, it sounds like maybe you have some insight into someone to reach out to there, or even just a letter to the principal. I don't know if that would make sense, at least as a start, but I couldn't agree more to not address it just sounds like the theme I'm hearing from the two of you and then the two students who were at our meeting last time, and this has stuck with me since the meeting, I'm sure it has for all the commissioners, but is that these incidents are not being taken as seriously as they should.
I'm really concerned because this is part of our national narrative at this moment. And when we turn a blind eye to these smaller moments, pretty soon they escalate and we begin to turn a blind eye to the bigger ones, to what happened to our newly elected member of the Minnesota House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. We can't condone these small moments. So I'm at a loss to suggest what should be done. Perhaps, as you're saying, a letter to the principal, a letter to the school board. What would you, as the students who were present, think would be an appropriate response? Because obviously, you were uncomfortable enough to share it this evening.
The thing is, I don't think their response was just because of the event. It's more of something that's systemic within our student body. So I don't think it's just related to like this one isolated incident. Rather, it's a mentality of our student body that it's acceptable to kind of hoot and holler and kind of tease whoever's up on stage. Like if you were to participate in any of our large school assemblies or pep rallies, I mean, it's kind of the same mentality that permeates through our entire student body, or if you were to walk through our hallways. So in terms of a proper response, again, I don't know how effective a letter would be, because it's not, like, of course it's part of the administration's, like, jurisdiction to kind of control students and to say what's right and what's wrong. But at the end of the day, it's about how students choose to conduct themselves every single day. And I'm not really sure what that solution is.
But it's also up to the faculty and staff to have a very influential role in creating the culture in that institution. They're the ones who remain year after year after year. And it sounds as though these small, I hate to use the word microaggressions, permeate the culture. I don't think that's okay.
So, Connie, can I clarify what you were saying, just to make sure? So there's a little bit of a question over what the next steps are, if any, that the district and the school is taking, and that you're slightly hesitant for us to write a letter that refers directly to hooting and hollering during the Pep Fest because it wasn't necessarily just directed because of the content of the assembly, that is a routine and a habit that is part of the culture of the school that is not a positive element but isn't directly related to racial relations.
But I think it's important for us to address things related to the assembly. But I just don't think that the assembly was the direct causation of the culture of our school, but it definitely informs it.
It also feels like a question should be asked about why were a majority of the speakers white students. And I mean, I know that we also look up at this group, and that's also an issue that we have. But it feels like at the high school, there should be more students who could.
But perhaps that's part of the bigger problem. That is, if the culture is perceived, particularly by students of color, as being aversive, to be there on that stage, in that auditorium, in front of hundreds of one's peers, is extremely difficult. So it's really bespeaking to that bigger issue, and that is the culture that's been created and that seems to be continuing.
I just wonder if we could potentially address this, write a letter like you said, write a letter like you said, Ellen, to maybe the school board and the principal, indicating we've had a number of meetings where incidents at Edina High School are being addressed as a concern. We've all heard about it, probably in the community at large. Jim, I know you've got a son who goes there, right? Daughter, excuse me. And then you guys go there. We've all got friends with. I've heard a lot about the incidents, right? Just in the community, and I think it would be fair as the Human Rights and Relations Commission to send a letter to say what is being done to address these seeming, human rights issues going on at the school. We want to somehow create a dialogue or create a communication. I don't know, MJ, if that's stepping on anyone's toes, but just to understand there have been so many incidents, Connie, to your point, that seem to be a reflection of this larger insidious problem, right? Like the hooting and hollering is just a reflection, that are a symptom of a much larger problem. And maybe that could be a start, just to make that connection between our group and the school board / principal.
What concerns me is the fact that the students are not, the student body is not able to realize that there are certain instances in which we cannot hoot and holler. With my friends, they understand the bigger issue, but I've heard many conversations between students, just like out of the corner in my classrooms, where they were saying that the assembly was kind of pointless and it wasn't needed whatsoever. And so I fear that the student body doesn't understand the bigger issue at hand. And that could be one reason as to why we feel, like Connie and I feel the way we do about the assembly and how it went. So I guess it would be also good to have, more discussions with assemblies as well, to get the students to realize the bigger issue. Because right now we've had 2 chats, or a chat in assembly, after this incident with the Snapchat incident, and it hasn't made much of an impact, but I do think it's made some impact. Obviously, there is still a large majority of the student body that was very disrespectful. But I think if we have more of these, and if we are able to raise more, continue to tell these students and have these types of discussions with the students, it's going to be ingrained in them that there is a larger problem and that there needs to be more respect about it and more talk about it.
I really like what you just said, because the first part of it is saying there's a problem, and figuring out how to address the problem is a challenge beyond the scope of our commission. but simply for us to be able to say, we are aware that there is a systemic problem.
Exactly.
I think that it really is beholden on us to do that. And that it's a problem that is likely present not only at the high school, but that we see systemically and endemically throughout our community. This is what the community conversations came forward with as well. Mm-hmm. And I think to frame it that way might be quite helpful, that we are looking at this at the level of the city, we are looking at different institutions within the city, and what is happening at the school is indicative of this citywide, I don't want to say problem, citywide challenge. And that's also part of our national challenge at this moment. So I think a letter wouldn't hurt. Mm-hmm. At least to go on record as saying something is wrong.
Are you volunteering to draft a letter?
I think I got volunteered. You want to help?
I can absolutely help. I would love to.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I think that since we can only conduct business, we're a public body, we can only conduct business at our next meeting, it would have to be brought back to our January meeting. You could certainly, the two of you could certainly circulate and I think communicate with Prasoon and Connie via email in terms of what might be helpful to say, but then we'll have to queue it up to come back to our January meeting. Okay, set. Thank you both, and thank you, Prasoon and Connie, for that. We appreciate that feedback. That wraps up our commissioners' comments. I have nothing. We are moving on to staff comments.
I have nothing tonight.
Thank you. No staff comments. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.